You are now listening to a J Money Beats production.
We got a problem.
The Minnesota Timberwolves had gotten off to an unlikely and impressive start to the season. They had new energy and new confidence from a roster that looked nearly identical to the one that missed the playoffs by 12 games the previous season. Former number 1 overall pick Andrew Wiggins was one of the NBA's early surprises. In his first 12 games of the season, he was averaging around 25 points, 5 rebounds, and 3.5 assists per game. The other players averaging those numbers at the time were perennial all-stars. His play along with Karl-Anthony Towns were the main reasons why the Timberwolves looked like a playoff team in the first couple of months. They got the season started off right when they won an overtime game against the Brooklyn Nets on opening night. They also beat the Miami Heat to get their record to 3-0, and they got their first win against the San Antonio Spurs for the first time in a long time. On December 1st, the Timberwolves were 10-8 and 7th in the Western Conference, embracing a new identity in which they played faster and shot more three-pointers. But from that point on, everything seemed to go downhill. Wiggins had cooled off from his impressive start, and their best player ended up getting hurt. They lost their next 11 games. The Timberwolves won the league worst 9-37. Something had to change. There was no reason for the front office to believe in this core. They went through a massive roster overhaul before the trade deadline. The roster on opening night was completely different compared to the roster at the end of the season. The only players on the roster now that was on the team last season are Towns and Josh Okogie. They traded for a number of players from January 16th to February 6th. Players like Evan Turner, Allen Crabbe, James Johnson, and Juancho Hernangomez. But the ones that got the fan base excited was Malik Beasley and D'Angelo Russell. When Gerson Rosa was hired as the team president of basketball operations last offseason, he said to the media that he will be aggressive, and he has proven that. If you think the team is broken, why stay the same? The franchise was finally able to make a deal for Andrew Wiggins, a player that seemed like his days was numbered as soon as he signed his max rookie extension. You now have 2 franchise players, 24 years old or younger. 2 reasons to be excited about the future of this team. Because of a fractured wrist for Towns, he and Russell were only able to play just 1 game together this season. Even though it seems like this duo will lead the Timberwolves to the playoffs automatically, it's important for fans to be cautiously optimistic. There are a lot of good teams in the NBA, and it's always hard for young teams to play consistently every night in the NBA and win, especially in the Western Conference. The Timberwolves are not the only talented young team in the West. You have Zion Williamson and the Pelicans, De'Aaron Fox and the Kings, Devin Booker and the Suns, and Ja Morant and the Grizzlies to worry about. And Towns and Russell are not necessarily known for their defense, especially Towns. Saying Towns is not a good defender will be putting it lightly. We all know how good of an offensive player he is, but he is just as bad on defense. The Timberwolves are 11.6 points per 100 possessions better defensively when Towns is on the bench, which is incredible. When a team gives you a $190 million contract extension, much is required. Nobody is asking him to be an elite defender. Just being an average defender will be a big step forward. With both of their franchise players' defensive shortcomings, don't expect the T-Wolves to run through the NBA and become a powerhouse. Gerson Rosa and the front office must surround Russell and Towns with as many good defensive players as they can. They finished the season 19-45, which is 3rd worst in the NBA. In my season preview, I expected this team to find a way to be competitive throughout the season, but not necessarily have enough to seriously contend in the playoffs. They were obviously much worse than I expected. We have to compare winning percentages because of the fact that all teams won't play 82 games this season. The Timberwolves had a lot of turnover on their roster throughout the season, but that would have never happened if they didn't play like one of the worst teams in the league from December and January. Changes were badly needed. There's a good chance they could get a top 5 pick in the upcoming draft. The number 1 prospect they need to focus on is USC big man Onyeka Okongwu. Finding a more defensive-minded player next to Towns has been a challenge, and this guy could be the answer the Timberwolves are looking for. This team has been ranked 25th or worse defensively in every season of Towns' career. There's no way that any team can win consistently and get to where they want to be playing that badly on defense. Okongwu is a player who can play both big man positions, and he is a defensive monster, a Bam Adebayo type, someone who can offset the damage on defense when Towns is on the court. Okongwu is the only prospect I believe the Timberwolves should be going after. Even if they get the number 1 pick, they should at least trade back a few spots, get some extra assets, and select a big man out of USC. If they miss on him, Trading their pick might be the best option for the franchise. They have done a good job in drafting players who can play defense in the last couple of years. In 2018, they drafted Josh Okogie, and last year they drafted Jarrett Culver. That needs to continue in the upcoming draft. Jarrett Culver did not have a good rookie season, and most of that was because of his outside shooting. That must change for him to get big minutes in the NBA. Culver shot under 30% on both pull-up jumpers and catch-and-shoot jumpers. His defense is the one area where he was able to contribute right away, and it was badly needed. But it won't matter if he can't find a way to contribute on offense. The most surprising player for the Timberwolves this season was former Denver Nuggets first-round pick Malik Beasley. The way he played for the Timberwolves this season is what I envisioned after his freshman season at Florida State. The Nuggets had a lot of players in front of him for the most part, and he did not get consistent minutes to be able to unleash his full skill set. He is a welcome addition to this team. Along with his talent, he brings the type of grit and fire to this team that they really haven't seen since Jimmy Butler got traded. Beasley is a very confident player, and you can see that the Denver Nuggets were holding him back. In his first game with his new team, he helped the Timberwolves blow out one of the best teams in the league in the LA Clippers as they won 142-115. The Wolves set a franchise record with 26 three-pointers in that game, which is one shy of tying the Houston Rockets for the NBA record. Beasley finished the night with 23 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists, and went 7 for 13 from the three-point line. Beasley averaged 21 points, 5 rebounds on 42% shooting from three-point land. He will be a restricted free agent this offseason, and the franchise needs to keep him at all costs. The chemistry between Beasley and D'Angelo was encouraging, and it can only get better. The Timberwolves should be excited about the future of this team, but they should not expect instant success, especially in the Western Conference.